I just bought the cheapest new shape MX5 in the UK, and it might have been the worst decision I've ever made. Let me explain. So here she is, a 2017 Mazda MX5. Now you might be wondering, from what you're looking at, the car looks really nice. It's finished in a satin black. It appears to have a body kit on it, aftermarket tail lights, aftermarket headlights, sprayed alloys. Moving on to the inside, you can see there's a lot of interior touches that have been done to this car. Now, if we take a quick look in the engine bay, a RAM air filter, and also a full BBR exhaust system, which I am very excited about. So it begs the question, why was this the cheapest new shape MX5 in the UK? And this airbag is a telltale sign of what you're about to see. Because as you walk on down here to the front of the car, you start to notice something. Something that looks a little bit off. And when you get in front of this car, you realize this is why this MX5 was the cheapest new shape in the UK, and we need to fix it. Now you might be asking yourself, what is so special about this car and why did I buy it? Well, number one, I got it at a very fair price that I'm going to touch on a little later in the video. Number two, and a huge reason of why I bought this car, is the information held within these papers. Well, what's in the papers, you ask? Let me show you, should I? So there's been around 280 spent on a side skirt, 305 spent on an air intake, a nice little £59 spent on some alignment, Android Auto and CarPlay, a full set of Michelin PS4s. Now this is where it gets interesting, £2,240 spent on brand new front pads and discs, rear pads and discs, calipers, brake fluid, and a cheeky little painting of the calipers. We then have coilovers coming in at £1,755. Exhaust tips and something to do with the back box. We then have another receipt for coilovers coming at £1,830. And right here, a stage 1 remap and refitting side skirts, £558, along with some dyno figures showing power outputs before and after the remap. So along with a whole bunch of these interior touches, these are aftermarket rear tail lights, which cost about £600. The car of course has been wrapped in a satin black, which I think looks really good. It has a good set of Michelin PS4s, painted calipers, and a lovely goldy bronze wheel, which if I pan over to the right, you'll see I'm a big fan of a black MX5 with bronzy gold wheels. The difference, of course, being that this MX5 that I currently own is 10 years older than this one. And this is a 1.8 litre and that's a 2 litre, which also means it's a remapped car that comes with a traction off button. Isn't that fun? So the first thing we need to do is take that front bumper off and inspect the damage a little bit closer. We also need to hope and pray that there's not some huge structural damage behind that bumper. But to take that bumper off, I do need to move the car, so I think it's only right you get to hear what that exhaust system sounds like. Let's go. So the jacking point is between these two indents. There's a reinforced piece. Now that is not a jacking point, and that I'm guessing is why that's happened before to someone. Right, so the axle stands are on this part. Feels fairly solid, so fingers crossed. Okay, so now the car's in the air, I can finally get the wheels off, arch linings, and take this bumper off to inspect this damage. So I figured out pretty quickly that I actually didn't need to take off the wheel at all. I could remove the front arch lining and I could access the screws and bolts to remove that bumper, along with the screws and clips at the top. And once they were removed, I could pull off the bumper, but that was slightly easier said than done. Because believe it or not, even with the three of us working on this bumper, it was a fairly stubborn old girl. Which I guess isn't so surprising when you consider that this has smashed into something and now that bumper is in a place it probably shouldn't be. So after a lot of pulling, tugging and persuasion, it was clearer to see exactly which parts were stuck, and we could use a pair of snips and snip that plastic away to finally get that bumper free of the car. Voila. Well, most of it. Some of it was still stuck in there. So the next step was removing this crash bar support. Look on that side, this piece is just bolted onto that frame.
Yeah.
And it's just that small little...
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a small piece that bolts onto the crash bar. Again, the metal had been really bent in, so it took a lot of prying and persuasion to pull that metal out to free up that bolt to remove. And once the bolts were removed off the other side as well, that bumper support could finally come off. And as you can see in that corner, it is very damaged. And this is where I'm figuring out there's a crumpled up piece of plastic in there, which I'm also going to need to remove. Okay, so front bumper is finally off after a lot of effort. This is part of the front crash bar, which is a bolt on, bolt off part. This piece of plastic that goes up here and it's bolted in there, that, as you can see, has been clapped up. So that needs removing. Okay, I've removed that bolt from it. That one needs coming out. Okay, so I've got that bolt out. This can come out now, I believe. There we go. So what's good to see on the bumper, although it's absolutely mangled up, is that once I get a new bumper and a grille, a lot of these parts can be transferred over because they do look in good condition. The lights do still work. So a lot of this is salvageable, which is a big win. So I will be honest, with the bumper removed, I feel a whole lot better about this damage. And here's why. These are the 3 parts that I need to change. Now bear in mind, I could actually see this coming through the bumper and I could tell it was crumpled, but I couldn't see these bolts, so I didn't know how far back this piece actually goes. But very luckily for me, it's actually a bolt-off piece, so I can replace just this piece alone. It does not look like the damage has extended any further back than that, because if this was damaged, as you can see, that would be a very structural part of the car, and that looks exactly the same as the other side, which is perfect. There's just a couple of things that have bent back, like this horn and this bracket, but they can easily be bent back forward without needing to be replaced. And somehow, some way, the headlight is not damaged and it works. Although I say not damaged, it is ever so slightly damaged on this corner, but that really does not warrant changing, considering it's not holding anything down and the light works perfectly fine. And that part is also covered by the bumper. This is the crumpled piece of crash bar that needs replacing. This right here is a folded in piece of plastic that needs replacing. And if you take a look at this side of this beam, that's completely fine. And that's not fine at all. So that needs replacing. So now that I'm satisfied with those parts on the outside, I can get those ordered and we can move on to the interior, because there's definitely a lot to talk about in the interior. And what I love about working on the interior of this car, that makes it a whole lot easier. So let's go over what we actually need to do in here. Firstly, this airbag needs to come out. I should probably disconnect the battery before doing that, although it is already blown, so it's not like it's going to blow up in my face. But that is not all. There's 2 more very important things that we need to do to get this interior back to normal. One of those things being this seatbelt has locked out, so that needs to be removed to be sent away to an airbag company. And the last, and hopefully fingers crossed, final thing that needs doing on the interior is the airbag ECU that stored the crash data, which is causing an airbag light on the dashboard. So I need to remove that ECU, send it to the airbag team who can reset the data. Now, unfortunately, that is easier said than done, because that ECU, having looked it up, sits just over here underneath this CD player, right behind that. Now, in order to take that out, you need to get this center console out, because the center console sits on top of that piece. And once you've removed this, again, in order to remove this, you need to take this gear knob off and this plastic and this leather trim. Then that part needs to come out. But before you can take this off, which as you can see is all one piece from there, there's other parts that overlap it, namely this part right here. But again, in order to take this off and get it off properly without breaking it, you need to take this part off. So we're now having to remove all of that and all of this, and this entire plastic piece needs to come forward. That CD player needs to come out for us to be able to reach the airbag ECU. Okay, let's get to it. So I'm in need of a 10mm socket along with this. That'll do me. I can then go ahead and remove the negative, which will suffice. That acts as the anti-roll bar, since this is a convertible. If you roll, this would support the structural integrity of your head. That's over here. Isn't that wonderful? So let me take off all of this, which I'll do the same things I did on this side on that side, and then we can get to taking off the seatbelt, and finally we can get to that ECU we need. So yes, I do look a bit silly, and yes, this thing around my neck is allowing me to film all of this while still having two hands, which is nice. Now I've got all of those plastic pieces off. So there is a CD player to remove. So with the CD player to one side, there's this small metal plate on top of the airbag ECU that needs removing. After a few bolts, that simply enough comes off. The airbag ECU has 3 plugs plugging into it, and after those are removed, I can remove the 3 bolts that hold that down. Okay, so with the airbag ECU removed, I can now get onto the seat belt and the actual airbag. Oh. So moving on to the seat belt, couple of bolts, disconnect the electrical connector, take off the rest of the bolts. They were very tight, as you'd imagine, and that's a seatbelt out. So with the seatbelt removed, there's one thing remaining, which is this driver's side airbag, and the way to remove it is using a screwdriver. There are 2 holes here. Oh, I got it. Okay, so if you take a look at the 2 cables, this one is fairly simple. It just presses in off this section here. I'm guessing that's some form of earth screwdriver. It's probably better. And this just slides out, and then we can remove the airbag. So here it is, the 3 parts that I need to replace. All right, that's done. I need to do a lot of admin and get a bunch of parts ordered. Fast forward a few days and I've got myself an airbag ECU that's been reset, and I also have a reset seatbelt from the airbag team. So I can pretty much get most of this interior back to its original self. All I'm waiting for is the driver's airbag, which we should have in a few days. So again, I start by disconnecting the battery. The seatbelt has a hook on the very top, so that one can go in first along with that bolt. The second bolt can go into the side, a third bolt into the bottom, and there's also a 4th bolt on the side. And then I plug in that electrical connector. I then tighten those seatbelt bolts up and onto the airbag ECU. A few bolts to hold that down and 3 plugs to plug that in. Next, the metal plate goes on top of the airbag ECU, and finally on top of that, the CD player can get bolted in. Once that's done, I can start reinstalling all of that interior back together, starting with that backboard and a few plugs. Now it's all a lot easier to put back together because I am the one that removed it, so I know exactly what order it all goes back in. A few bits on the center console to click in and screw in, and finally the cup holders, and that's an interior put back together. Now a couple of days later, I did manage to get myself an airbag. For some reason, had a bunch of orange spray on the back. I don't know why, but I think it does the job. So there's 2 plugs that plug in to the airbag. One is the electrical connector and the other one I believe is an earth. And then I can push that in place. That was eventful. Jesus Christ, it got stuck and then it just started going off. Okay, so with everything on the interior done, I can lock this and make my way over here because I have received some parts. The bracket that crumpled seems like it goes on that way. So I'll just bring it around here and flip it like so. So this side of this piece was extremely damaged up. I bought this new one and it needs to go on. I think it goes on here. That would make a lot of sense. As you can see, it fits in there, and I think it goes behind these 2 bolts. So let me take these out. And I can grab a couple more. Okay, so I've bolted this piece in. You can see one bolt goes up there, and the other one goes up there. And you can see on here, there's a little clip for this that pops into that to hold that in place. Okay, so here we have old bumper and grille, and as you can see there's a bunch of lights and little bits and bobs, attachments, metal pieces that are on there. That's the new grille, that's a new bumper. So all of the extra parts from this needs to be transferred over to that. I start by removing the fog light on the right hand side along with this small metal support piece. I then remove the support piece on the left hand side and take all of the screws off for the grille. Once the fog lights are completely removed from both sides, I can bring that new bumper forward and start screwing in those fog lights to the new bumper. How to get this plastic piece off this, but the screws don't seem to want to come out. If you look on the other side, it's these funky things. Alright, I have finally got this piece off, and it's just these annoying, they're such annoying little screws. They're plastic, so I need to transfer this over this way and it will go back on to this one here. So it is the next day, and as it turns out, the weather has taken an appalling turn for the worse. I need to continue putting together this bumper, and I've actually had a delivery of some parts which I'm very excited about. I'm very close to having all of the parts I need to get this car back on the road. Okay, that's the grille. Basically, almost put in, and it looks like it does fit quite well. Tow hook cover I do have from the other bumper. Fog lights look good. Now it's getting these secured at the top. I have received a package straight from Japan, and very pleased to say. Oh, they're bonnet actuators. And although they are original parts, they were a fraction of the cost. So let's get these in. Okay, so now what's left? Front bumper needs to be put back on, of course. I've just realised this now. Pretty sure a piece is missing from here, because on this side, this trim piece that attaches to the wheel arch. So we'll fit that wheel arch later in the video, but right now the windscreen is cracked and I called AGM Windscreens to fit me a new one. Unfortunately, I wasn't home, so you're gonna have to put up with this pretty shoddy doorbell footage. My bad. Okay, so windscreen has now been replaced. There's no longer a massive smash in it, which is amazing. Although the guys at AGM Windscreens did run into a few issues with these trim pieces. Basically, the clips are broken. That just comes straight off. Also, this top panel was basically all glued on with a large amount of glue, and the clips had completely broken off the inside of those. So I have two options. I can either glue this stuff back on, or I can buy a whole replacement trim piece. With this side panel, I can definitely just buy some new clips, and I have a sneaky suspicion that it was glued on for a reason, and I might need to end up gluing it on too. Before I order any clips or do anything else, I'm going to get this side skirt onto the car, just in case there's anything else I'm missing, so I can order it at the same time. Okay, so I have most of these clips in here. That one is broken, and that one is missing, and down here I have these style of clips, which are all fine until those two also missing. Got this very handy trim removal tool which slots perfectly into there and takes the clip out without damaging it.
2 seconds later.
Never mind. Never frickin' mind. So I got some new clips, popped them in, and then I could put the side skirt on. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of it, so you'll just have to take my word for it. I did go to Mazda and pick up a new bonnet, which was extremely expensive, but now we need to fit it onto the car because, as you can see, the car's damaged. So I started off by loosening the bolts on the hinges and taking that old bonnet off, leaving the engine exposed. I could then start removing all of the trim pieces that's on the inside of the bonnet. That includes the soundproofing and this rubber strip. There's a few plastic clips that just go into that. And then there's a couple of small metal pieces on the side, which can be taken off and bolted to the new bonnet, along with these rubber stoppers which allow you to adjust the height of the bonnet. Now, with the help of my father, I can go ahead and bolt the new bonnet onto those hinges and test it out, see if it works, and it does not work. So it was a little bit iffy to get right. After a few attempts and turning those rubber stoppers quite a few times, we did manage to get that spot on, and the gap between the panels is actually perfect. So one of the last things left to do is getting the new bumper along with the old grille and fog lights and everything attached to it onto the car. So I started by attaching all of the crash sensors onto the bumper and plugging that in, along with plugging in both of the fog lights. Once they were all plugged in, and with the help of my father, we were able to hang that bumper into place and start attaching the plastic plugs that hold that in, along with a few screws. And I also managed to pick up a wheel arch from Mazda so I could attach that since I'm down here. And speaking of being down here, I noticed when the wheel were off, the coilovers are BC Racing coilovers, which means this car should, in theory, drive very well, and I'm very excited to take it out. But first, the car is in a complete state and it needs a clean before the big reveal. So this is the moment all of that time and effort has come down to. The day I can finally drive this MX5. But first, let's take a look around it. Beep beep. Oh, hey man, what's up? I have a problem. Okay, tell me about it. What's wrong? What's wrong? I have a problem. Right. Do you want to elaborate a little bit? I can't really help you if you're not helping me. Help me understand what you mean. What's the problem? I can maybe help you. I have a problem. Listen, you're really starting to piss me off. I can't help you if I don't know what the problem is. Okay? Just go. Just go. Okay? Okay, I have a problem. And that is a visual representation of what it's like trying to speak to your car. You can't really understand it other than seeing a big fat engine light. Unless you can. And that is where Carly comes in. So now that we've done all of that work to the car, we need to make sure before we take it out onto the road that it is safe to drive and the car doesn't think there's any issues. So I'll plug the Carly in, scan the car, and figure out if we're good to go. If we are, we're gonna go for a drive. With Carly, you can scan and find potential issues with your car or the car you're about to buy without heavy diagnostic fees attached. You very simply download the app, plug your device into the OBD port, you can then connect to your car and finally understand what your car is trying to tell you. On top of diagnosing issues and reading warning lights, there is a feature called the New Car Check, and that'll come in very handy for me with this car. Now, your mileage is stored on multiple ECUs in the vehicle, so it's not just on your main ECU. The gearbox has its own mileage stored, and multiple other parts of your car store the mileage. Now, when you run a New Car Check with Carly, it will scan through all of those different odometer readings and make sure they all line up. So if you were buying a new car, you would know if that car has been clocked back or not, because it would tell you. That would potentially save you thousands of pounds and a whole lot of headache. Believe it or not, Carly works on 95% of cars from 2001 onwards. And not only can you diagnose issues, you can code features into your car. So not only will you be able to understand what your car is telling you, you can actually speak to your car and finally take a little bit of control back and tell your car what to do. Because you're the boss, okay? So if you like saving money and you like your car and you don't want to be ripped off, there is a link at the very top of my description, which if you follow will give you 15% off the Carly that you order. Alternatively, you can go to Carly yourself and at the checkout use code AHMVD for 15% off your order. Big thank you to Carly for sponsoring this video. Let's get on to that drive. Now, before I take this car for the long-awaited drive, let's cover what we have left to do before we get too ahead of ourselves. So these two B pillars, the bonnet and the front bumper all need wrapping satin black to match the rest of the car. Whether I do that myself or I give it to a professional company to do it is yet to be decided. Let me know in the comments whether you think I should attempt to wrap it myself. The other complication with the wrap is actually matching this satin black, because there are thousands of different companies of wrap. So I don't know exactly what's been used on this car. However, I have found the number of the owner who I assume wrapped the car before the previous owner. So in the next video, I will be calling the owner who did all of these modifications and seeing if he's willing to speak to me and also give me the name of this wrap. I'll also do a little bit more of an in-depth drive and get the reactions of a bunch of people, which quite honestly is my favorite part of having a new car. I can't quite explain the sound, but it sounds really good. It's quite raspy. There's something about having the roof off, even when it's cold out, which it isn't actually that cold. But you can put the heater on in this car and it's good enough to keep the cabin warm, even though it's kind of cold outside. This version is a 2-litre petrol with a 6-speed manual gearbox. My old MX5 is a 1.8 litre with a 5-speed gearbox, and I have to say that extra gear makes all the difference. Although I am noticing that the alignment is a little bit off. For me to go in a straight line, I kind of have to be pointing the wheel a tiny bit to the right, which is probably something I should look into. My left turn is coming up. That takes us onto one of the nicest roads around this area. And there's someone in front of me. It's just great. Come on, get out of my way. You know when it starts to smell like manure? You're gonna get some good roads. I need to put the roof up because the slight drizzle is a bit more than a drizzle. Oh my god! I cannot explain to you how much the coilovers are doing. Genuinely. Okay, this needs to be closed. Going at speed on these corners, the car is so direct, and I can only imagine it's down to those upgraded coilovers, because I highly doubt a stock MX5 would drive this well. It just points exactly where you want it to point, and furthermore, there's not a lot of body roll at all. Like, I'm going around these corners pretty hard, and it just is solid. Now, comparing this to the 300 brake horsepower S3 I owned, that car had 100 more horsepower, and don't get me wrong, it was a lot of fun, and it would go extremely quickly and it would get there very quickly. This car, although it is quick, it's very light and it's just over 200 brake horsepower. You can really drag each gear out, and that makes it a lot of fun. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you did enjoy this video even a tiny little bit, please do drop a like down below. Hit the subscribe button for more content like this. It helps me out more than you can ever imagine. And I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.